the creatives at the agency should be unbridled. Like, come up with the elephant parade, come up with the spaceship. I did one, the guy was in space floating around in a spacesuit, and another time the same guy was in a train. So my job was to put it through sort of my creative filter and go, well, what if it's a toy train set and the guy's in front of it? Right. What if he's in front of a backdrop like he's floating in space, and we sort of take the piss out of it and reveal that he's cheating the spacewalk? Right. Like, why don't we force it into our budget and just bend it enough creatively? And that's what I really get excited about, is how can I come up with a solution that allows us to do what they want to do? So I defend the agency teams for coming up with craziness, and I sort of see it as my job to go, okay, let me throw some possible solutions that get across the same thing, and in a funny way. And sometimes it's even funnier because you don't have the money.
Hey, welcome to Brand Storytellers, where we talk about brands with the people who create their stories. If you like this episode, give it a like and a comment. We'd love to hear from you. And subscribe to our channel for more episodes. Today, we're talking to Jordan Brady, a filmmaker in Santa Monica, California, who has his own production company, as well as a school to teach others the craft of filmmaking. We're also going to talk to Jordan about his work in a podcast he calls Respect the Process. Let's join in and find out how to make our work better. You know, when we think about creativity, a lot of times we think about freedom. It's just, creativity is just so spontaneous and it's free and all that. When in fact, process is critical, it seems, because process is kind of that little box that you have to work within because it's real, you know?
I think parameters fuel creativity because you go into problem-solving mode. You know, someone on LinkedIn posted, and I think it was a director or a producer on the production side, complaining about creatives coming up with ideas that they can't afford, right? And while I've seen things through that prism, I wrote back, no, the creatives at the agency should be unbridled. Like, come up with the elephant parade, come up with the spaceship. I did one, the guy was in space floating around in a spacesuit, and another time the same guy was in a train. So my job was to put it through sort of my creative filter and go, well, what if it's a toy train set and the guy's in front of it?
Right.
What if he's in front of a backdrop like he's floating in space, and we sort of take the piss out of it and reveal that he's cheating the spacewalk?
Right.
Like, why don't we force it into our budget and just bend it enough creatively? And that's what I really get excited about, is how can I come up with a solution that allows us to do what they want to do? So I defend the agency teams for coming up with craziness, and I sort of see it as my job to go, okay, let me throw some possible solutions that get across the same thing, and in a funny way. And sometimes it's even funnier because you don't have the money. Like, I wish the listeners could see the spot that I did with you.
Well, maybe we'll cut in a clip.
Well, please do, because I was so excited when I got the board, and I've been thinking about this ever since you invited me.
Yeah. So
it was a campaign for kids not to smoke.
Right.
And it was really out there. Like, bad things happen when you smoke. So there's a 14-year-old boy in the park smoking, and all of a sudden a Rottweiler comes, and his arms, when he takes a puff, his arms turn into sausages. just like big link sausages from an old Italian deli, and the arms are flailing, and then the Rottweiler came in and ate his arm, and the super comes up. Bad things happen when you smoke. So that to me is like, well, we don't have Hollywood level
Yeah.
budget for effects.
No, we had a very small
So
budget.
it was a small budget, but that was the fun. Was, is there a campy way? Like
Yeah.
the jump cut
The jump cut.
was like Bewitched, boink. It's just a quick cut, and the sausage was, from a prop place, but I think we made one with dog food, and the dog really did grab it, so it was all in camera,
Right.
and it's even more hilarious than I'm getting excited just talking about than a CG character's arm, CG arms.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the process of having obstacles, having a very small box to work within is truly a gift when it comes to creativity, when it comes to storytelling. But again, going back to the respecting the process, why did you call it that? Respect the process.
Okay, I was shooting 4 days in, I don't know, it was like Des Moines, Iowa, or someplace. Okay, and if you were shooting it in a secondary market, you could do it in 1.5. But in this market, the crew, they were good, but they weren't as buttoned up. When you're setting up, the crew's talking and you're having fun. Filmmaking's a fun thing. But then when it came time to roll the camera, I would have to say, okay, quiet, respect the process. We're here to capture a magic moment on film. Whether it's a product or an actor saying something or a guy with sausage arms, the only thing that matters is capturing that moment as the camera's rolling. So I would say repeatedly for 4 days, respect the process. We're going to roll the camera. Stop talking about, last month's shoot or the movie that came to town 10 years ago, whatever. And it became like a joke. And at the end of the 4 days, they had a wrap party, which you never have on a commercial shoot. One of the producers made T-shirts for everybody that said "Respect the process."
Oh, wow.
And they had my name, like Jordan Brady says, "Respect the process." And I was like, "Damn, did I say it that much?" They were laughing with me,
Yeah.
at me, because of me, for me.
That's great.
And I loved it, and I held on to it.
That's great. And I just wonder if there was something in that line of experience, those years of experience, that process of going through that, where you realized you had arrived where you really wanted to be and where you knew you were where you wanted to be as a director.
I remember the moment when I feel like personally I was satisfied where I arrived as a comedy director, and when my tone and point of view, or my voice, as I like to say to newer filmmakers, when I really found my voice is when an EP from another company, Caviar, one of the biggest shops, texted me and said, "I just saw that spot. Please tell me you directed it." And I texted back, "Yes, I did."
Wow.
That
awesome.
The tone of in the spot came through with my voice, that another, contemporary who I admire, Michael Sagal, he started the company years back, and we had worked together before they even called it that. And I was like, man, that made me feel so good. I think for a career, you have to sometimes subvert the process, to disrespect the process, not the process of making the commercial, but sometimes, yes. Sometimes, like, forget whatever we're planning, forget it, put the camera on a sandbag on the ground and let's shoot. And sometimes that's some of the best stuff. But career-wise, there's these mutations where an agency will trust you this is another great feeling.
Mhm.
The agency will trust you with something you've never done before.
Right.
So you go, like I did these Eggo waffle spots. It was a guy in a suit. And it was because at one point the year before, some guy had me do a guy in a suit. And then another person saw that and said a guy in a suit. So that first person, I'm not telling it chronologically, but the first person who gave me a guy in a suit, like a mascot, led to this, like, you know, when you tap into a vein of gold
Mhm.
when you're mining, and it just became this weird tangential career thing where, oh, you're the anthropomorphic expert. I did people dressed as cows and bears, and you know, there was a bear job, and I'm like, oh, I have like 3 different
Yeah,
bears
we
on
need a
my
bear
reel.
guy. We need a bear director. that's that's literally what I could hear a creative team telling their producer. We need somebody that does bears really well.
You know what? You know what? One of my pet peeves, and I don't think I'll change the industry, Bart. But you get the call from like a sales rep. You know, directors have agents that are known as sales reps, and they rep the company and the directors, and they'll say, "Hey, we have this project. Shoots in an office.
Mm.
Have you give me all your spot? Tell me the spots where you've shot in an office." I'll say, "What's the tone? Like, what's the bit? Is the bit in my voice? Am I the best director?" A director may have on her reel a spot of 2 people at the beach that has the same back and forth that's more appropriate tonally
Right.
than the freaking office spot.
And that's why picking a director maybe early on like that, someone that you enjoy working with. And I'm just curious if this happens where an agency might reach out to you and say, you know, we're going to pitch this to the client. We're not quite sure what to do with it. Do you have any thoughts that might help us? You know, do you ever get in the process of doing something that preliminary with someone?
Oh my goodness, yes. I have been blessed to do the same bunch of the same Toyota campaign, Lane Terralever. Here's 20 scripts. What do you think?
What do you do with it? You're right.
What do you do with it?
You're right.
And so there's 2 ways, you know, you look at it creatively, like, oh my gosh, I need this for my reel. I need,
Exactly.
right? I need the where's the butter, whatever you call the script. I need that for my reel. So I look at it through the creative lens and then through the minimizing production logistic lens. And that just comes with craft, right? Of just doing it for 25 years.
Right.
You know, just randomly, well, not randomly, agencies that I've worked with, at least one of the team members will say, hey, we have these 3 scripts. Like, can this be pulled? What is your thoughts? Which one do you like?
Right.
And that's a real treat.
Well, and that's a great partnership. And I would say the chances would be much more likely that it's going to improve that work. It's going to give a dimension to that work. And one of the things that I realized pretty early on is not every director is a storyteller. And humor is incredibly difficult because it requires discipline. And so many times people think I've got to make the director might think I have to make every single thing funny. And it's like, no, that makes it too hard for it to be funny. It's too difficult.
Yes. Oh my God. I just had that same conversation with someone
Really?
about a cut, an edit, where on set we did a lot of funny things. And I think the client, I won't name names, the spot turned out great, but in the process of editing, the client who was on set laughing at all the different alt lines and different setups. And I'm like, I try to be truth serum. You know, if someone laughs because somebody did something different on set and they're like, that was crazy, that was funny, I'll say, hey, it was only funny because it was unexpected and different. It wasn't funny in the context of our spot. Yeah. But in this case, exactly what you said, they stacked like funny, 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 funny. And the story and the messaging of the spot was kind of kicked to the curb. So here I am, Mr. Wanting the funniest spot possible, saying, you have too many jokes. Like, it was totally flipped where I'm the one saying, if you don't put the product shot in, we don't know what it's about. Like, that's the setup. Like, I'm actually asking for the product sooner in the commercial and omitting a joke so that the jokes in the middle and the end
Actually work.
are funnier.
You have a whole, like, I guess, tutoring mechanism for others. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing for fostering these other directors.
Well, Bart, that's so kind of you. Anyone can learn all about it at commercialdirectingfilmschool.com. And I was going to ask you the same thing about Job Propulsion Laboratory. Is like, what is it about people when they get? I think it came with age, a a desire, almost like a calling to share the knowledge.
Right.
And I had wonderful mentors share with me, and I had a slew of people that guarded the knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah.
They didn't want to share. These are my secrets. Why would I tell you what took me so many years to learn?
Right.
And I didn't want to be that person.
Right.
So I started doing workshops in 2015 with Commercial Directing Boot Camp, and it was kind of grown out of the podcast, which is called Respect the Process, because people would email and say, wow, I'm learning so much listening to you talk to other directors, creative directors, a couple of clients, technicians, DPs.
Right.
What a sound mixer does was an early, like, I'm learning so much. So I thought, I could do like a seminar. That'll be fun. And then the boot camp, I have to thank COVID for turning the boot camp into sort of a cannibalized shortened version, which became an online masterclass. And then that grew into, like, I think 4 or 5 courses. And I'm so proud. This is the first time anyone's hearing what I'm about to tell you. One of my early boot camp filmmakers, who was the recipient of a diversity award, because I always like to have someone from an underrepresented population come for free. She now is a working director for 10 years, and we're going to launch her treatment class probably by the time this is up.
All right. That's cool. That's great. That's exciting.
Yeah, on commercialdirectingfilmschool.com. And it was like, wow, soon, this is the student becoming the master.
Right.
But I put it back to you. What is it, that yearning where it's like, you know what, I got something not only to say, but something to pass on?
Well, I'll be honest with you. With me, from my personal view, I started mentoring people very early on because I just happened to I got a request to come and visit the school and do a visiting lecture. And then the person that was in charge of that program at that school said, why don't you come every week? And I was like, okay.
Wow.
And so I talked to my employer and they said, yeah, that'll be okay. Cause it was half a day. People asked me, why are you doing that? That's, that takes a lot of your time. And I said, because somebody my professor in school, Rob Lawton, drove from Dallas to Commerce, Texas to teach us at East Texas State, which is now part of Texas A&M. And if he had not done that, I would not have my life dramatically changed. I don't even know where, as a professional, where my life would have been, because I was completely lost up to that. I was just a fine art major and I was into music, and I was worrying my parents to death because they thought I was going to starve to death. And then all of a sudden, here's this teacher who says, oh, by the way, here's advertising. And it changed my life. And I thought, I have to do that for others. Otherwise, they might have to go back to a life that I would never want to go back to. What made me a mentor at heart, I think, was the idea of, could I be the person that changes someone's life like mine was changed? And from my standpoint, that's that's what motivated me. And it's always been there for me. I did it, when I moved to Atlanta, I got involved with the Creative Circus. Before that, Portfolio Center, with the One Club of New York. I did a lot of diversity education with them early on in the late 90s, early 2000s. And then, worked with, anytime I was around
It wasn't even called diversity then.
No, there were several, traditionally Black colleges in Atlanta, and they had no advertising programs. They might have a little bit of art program, but they wouldn't have much. And so the One Club called me and said, we want to work with these schools. Will you help us? And I said, yeah. So I put together a whole 2-day seminar training program with them. And we did it about 3 years in a row while I was still in Atlanta before I moved. But
that's a great story. Yeah, the big secret is I can hear it in your telling that the gratification, like you said, and the rush of giving back, but also the forcing yourself, I reshuffle my slides for the boot camp, and I have one coming up in 16 days. And I told my wife, I might have to chuck the whole presentation and start from scratch, because it's this patchwork, for the last, I did it 5 years ago. I chucked it and restarted. I think I got to shed its skin again.
Right.
So now I'm challenged to go, the stuff that was working in 2018 is not working now.
Exactly.
The tools are different, the approach, the deliverables, the way how knowledgeable clients, agencies, and your crew are now is different.
And I tell people a lot of times the reason I love mentoring and love training people is because it keeps my blade sharp. It keeps me up to speed on what's going on in the industry, and then looking at those new tools of technology that we're getting. And that's kind of another question I had for you. What are the new technology tools that you see that you're either using now or maybe you see yourself using in the future?
What I'm looking forward to in maybe 2014 end of year is do a combination of AI to expand the dealership, effects wise, shoot on a stage with a few key practical elements using my effects not background, but I've done enough effects. I know I can build the mural and the windows and the light. So I just need a white room with pillars, a desk, some, ugly plants and paraphernalia, and then let AI expand during prep to give us different looks.
Right.
And then I want to take the oldest trick in the filmmaking book and shoot a miniature dealership.
That's cool. Yeah.
And then place the live action in the miniature.
Right.
Almost like a Baz Luhrmann film, or yeah. But not to look campy.
No, I get
that's
you.
not part of the joke.
Yeah, it's seamless. You actually don't know what the trick you use to do it.
It's just force perspective,
right,
but use AI to generate how that can look and maybe fill in the gaps, digital enhancements like we do anyway. So I'm really looking forward to the oldest trick in the book with the newest trick in the book.
One of the things that you want, ultimately, that I want when I'm talking to my proteges about improving their creativity, is to use these things as tools of imagination. And because you can write anything down and see what can happen, and then use that as inspiration, stimuli, that type of thing.
They're the prompt. Right? The AI is the prompt back to us.
Back to us, right. And so it goes from, you get the artificial intelligence to give you a prompt so that your natural intelligence can take it to the next place. And I think that's part of the new process. And I tell people, always embrace new technology as tools of creativity. because they're here to stay. These are tools that are going to make us faster, give us more time for creativity and all of that. And so being an adopter of technology to help you create is the way you should look at it. It shouldn't be like replacing your creativity. And I never see it as that.
Can I geek out on you for 1 sec? Before there was non-linear editing, I did a short documentary on stand-up comedians. Well, it's kind of funny. I'll get to the Mac part. One of my best friends was a comedian, and I was a comedian getting into filmmaking. He was teaching, like you and I, but he was teaching comedy at the UCLA extension course. And I said, I didn't call him, but I called the UCLA, the Regents of California, and I negotiated the rights to document his class. He's like, Jordan, what are you doing here? Wayne Fetterman is his name. He just was a producer on the Don Rickles documentary. He's a great guy. And so he goes, what are you doing here? I go, you didn't tell me you were doing this. I'm documenting the class. And we had a blast for like 12 weeks or whatever it was. So in editing, there's no nonlinear. You have to go like to basically do souped up tape decks.
Yeah, that's it.
So I took my Mac Classic, and there was a program called FileMaker Pro. And I made a database and logged all my footage by scene number, take, description, character.
Seconds,
so that
frames.
You had to create, it's basically like Excel
right.
meets a Rolodex. But it gave me the opportunity to put people together like what we used to call paper cut with non-linear chunks of footage.
Right. You have this dedication to process to elevate the quality of your work. You have a process by which you're sharing with other potential directors or directors to improve their craft. So what's the aspiration that comes from going through that process? I mean, where do you take it? Where are you wanting to go in the future?
Well, my son is a director, and I'm so proud. He was in the Shoot magazine, which is a commercial industry production rag, their new director showcase in 2023, back a few months ago in the fall. And he did everything different from what I teach. He wrote his own spot. He wrote a voiceover. I hooked him up with a copywriter, creative director who gave him some lines, and we recorded him. He didn't even use it. I had to be like the agency insisting on a product shot. He did at least that. And it's a gorgeous spot. So my challenge is and he's been DPing for me quite a bit this past year. And agencies love him. They've called and hired him without me to shoot. So I'm super over the moon proud of him. And personally, as a dad, I'm trying to shut up and back off a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? I'm trying to okay, I have my opinions and I teach, and he's been to my boot camp and all, and he filmed my masterclass. Like, he has a red, he came over, he lit me. It looks like I think he pulled focus on the real masterclass for like Spike Lee. He knows the lighting setup.
Yeah.
He's a far better technician than I am, and he's becoming a great storyteller. So one of the challenges is how do I can't take off the dad hat, but how do I back off and let him be his own filmmaker?
Right.
Because my dad wasn't a filmmaker.
Right.
Right. Like, it's a small group of us.
Right.
And then we have a son that does it, or a daughter. Let him find their own path and his own voice. And at the same time, he's signed to my company, and I'm promoting him and selling him as a director and a director DP. So my goal is to be on set in the video village, handing out swag and eating parfaits while he's directing And I respect that because I've done that with other directors that I've had at my a couple different companies. You know, one of the things that I learned about you on that first sausage arm spot, and there was one where a guy turned into a lion.
That was really funny. Yeah. And
you had a young team, creative team, and you nudged them, right? Like Mama Bear. You let them struggle up the cliff, and then if you had to, you go grab them by the fur and bring them up. But you gave them the leeway. That team, you gave them enough rope.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to do. Is like I knew that I don't remember any time you had to swoop in and grab them by the fur.
No, not that.
But you were ready.
Yeah, no, and I will say that does take some discipline, and I find myself. I love the process so much of ideation and doing it and all that. And when you're collaborating with people, it's like it's got to be theirs. It can't. I don't want them to walk away from this thinking it wasn't really mine. It was really his. And that's the reason why I think why I get so excited and got so excited about seeing Respect the Process and listening to your podcast and getting to share in that with others. Because passing it on to the next generation is what it's all about.
I do want people to go, that guy gave back.
Right. That's it.
And so I don't know if that's, that's like,
that's it. And
I don't need a statue.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
Although it'd be nice. Just get me on a good hair day.
Yeah. Jordan's not only a gentle soul, but he's also one of the funniest directors I know. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please give us a like and a comment and subscribe to our channel so that you can keep up on the next episode of Brand Storytellers. We'll talk to you then. Thank you.